All right, hello, Professor Hernandez class. So this is an exercise, it's called a Think Aloud exercise. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spend the next roughly 20 or 30 minutes investigating one of your topics the way I would as a scholar. You're going to get this live, so you're going to see mistakes, you're going to see sort of my mindset and how I shift my search terms. I want to give you guys sort of an insight into what it is I do when I want to conduct research like this. First, I'm going to open up a Microsoft Word document so I can take notes as I'm going along. I've actually chosen Joanni's topic that was presented because that one really interests me. So Joanni's topic was the one about mental health in college students. So it seems like our goal is really to sort of look towards advocacy for mental health. Now, to do this, I'm going to go to my primary locations for searching for source material. I've got three that I'm interested in. One is I'm going to log into Atlas here, go to search the library, and I'm going to go to databases A to Z. There are three databases that I like to go to that I frequent. One is Academic Search Complete, one is Academic OneFile, and the last one is JSTOR. I'm going to try to look in all three to see what kind of articles I can discover and what kind of articles I can find. The other place I have open is just Google, just a simple basic Google search. And I also have Google Scholar open. Now, before I really get into Google Scholar, I'm going to take just a second here, and I'm going to go here to the settings, and I'm going to go here to where it says library links. And what I'm doing is I'm searching for Valencia College so that I can then connect Valencia College to this work. That's going to help me if I look up mental health. I should be able to find some that are, well, it should be showing up. Hang on a second here. Let's go to my library links. Let's go to Valencia College. Let's go to search. There it is. I have to click it right there. So what I did was I went to library links, Valencia College, and now that I've saved this, as I go through, should be able to, there it is. That's what I was looking for. I'm going to find that there are some of these available full text at Valencia College. That way I don't get stuck behind a paywall. Some of these articles I won't be able to gain access to because it costs money to get to the article. The last one that I really like is I like YouTube. I'm a fan of finding videos online and using those videos to help me understand a subject or help me understand a topic. Let's start off by making sure I have at least one or two peer-reviewed journal articles. I'm going to go to Academic Search Complete first. So I'm going to go ahead and click here where it says full text and scholarly peer reviewed. I've decided I'm not going to specify a time period quite yet. I don't think it's necessary for me to limit myself to a specific time period. Now, for my initial search terms, I think I'm just going to look at what the listed topic is, which is mental health and college students. Thank you. Mental health, college students. And what I want to do here is I want to just get myself a chance for a very broad search. I just want to just kind of see what's coming up here. Now, I always select Boolean phrase. A Boolean phrase is essentially and or statement. So if I said mental health and college students, that means that I'm looking for anything that mentions the words mental health and the word college student. So I'm going to type that into my search, and I'm going to choose full text and scholarly peer review. Now, if I said mental health or college students, it's going to look for anything that mentions the word mental health or the word college students. That's not very helpful to me. I might be able to say or university students, as it might mention the word university students as opposed to college students. So let's just see what comes up when I do this search. So I have 60,775 searches. That's really broad for me. I see that and I'm already starting to look through and I'm overwhelmed immediately by the sources. Though I do see a couple that I say to myself, I kind of want to read that. So this one says college students in crisis, prevention, identification, and response options for campus housing professionals. I'm going to save that one to my folder. Saving it to my folder essentially allows it to go into a saved space. So if I go here to the folder, that article is now going to be listed and saved there. Now, my next step, if I see an article like that and I'm just perusing, I'm doing what I call exploratory research, I'm going to read through the abstract. So the abstract says resident assistants, RAs, are often faced with working and living among residents who are struggling in distress and at times in crisis. The article provides a primer on identifying residents in crisis as well as the tasks faced when working with students in transition and crisis. A discussion of prevalence of distress reported by students is followed by a review of the unique stressors encountered by students. Now, I'm not sure if this one is exactly aligned with what, say, Joanni was looking for. So I have that one saved there, saved for later, so I can go back through later and have these emailed to myself. Now, I'm also going to make a note to myself of what I've done so far in my research. So I'll say, so far, searched for the terms I've used are mental health, college students, and university students. Now, the reason I'm making a note here is I just want to later be able to identify that I've done this research already, that I've already conducted or looked for those particular terms. I might make a quick note to myself like issue too broad, and that's fairly common. It's fairly common for you guys to be either too broad or too narrow in your search terms. So I'm going to instead look up mental health college students, and then I'm going to add in a term instead of university students. I'm going to add in the term advocacy. Let's see what comes up when I do that. That brought me down to 9. That's a little bit more manageable. And so I'm going to start searching through. Now, none of these are really getting along to what Joanni was looking for, but I'm intrigued by this phrase right here. A lot of times when I'm reading through sources, I start skimming and scanning for interesting terms. Counseling services or counseling might be a better term for me to use than mental health. So I'm going to try counseling. And I'm going to see if counseling gets me a different set of terms. So what I'm doing is I'm essentially adjusting my search terms, and I'm trying to figure out how adjusting my search terms may help me start to find more sources. Creating college-going culture for economically disadvantaged students through social justice counseling. Not exactly what you're looking for, Joanni. Community consultation and intervention supporting. Ooh, now this one is interesting. Now I'm starting to find ones that really start to get into my area that I'm intrigued by. The title is usually the first place I look, and then I follow that up by looking directly at the abstract. Although the severity of psychological problems among college students and the demand for campus counseling services has increased, many students who could benefit from mental health services still do not access them. Now we're getting someplace. This article describes community consultation and intervention, program design, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I definitely want to read this article for later. So what I'm going to do is add this one to my folder, and then I'm going to go so far as to go down here, and I'm going to email this to myself. The reason I'm emailing this to myself is because when I eventually close this, I'm going to lose this folder. And this one seems a little bit more closely aligned with the kind of research that I'm doing. So I would enter my email address here, and then I would put my subject in, and then any comments. I'm not going to actually send this to myself because I don't want to flood myself with emails. Well, let me send it to you guys real quickly and I'll show you what it looks like when it comes in to my email. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to skim and scan the source material that this author used. I like to try to skim the sources to try to find, say, for example, this is interesting. Published in 1998, that's problematic to me. A lot of their research is older. I wonder when this was published. This one was published in 2009, 10 years ago. I want to read it and just make sure that it's still within the boundaries of what I'm searching for. I think it is still relevant, even though it is 10 years old. I still might be able to use it. I'm going to look through, though, and see Well, this book, for example, interests me. College of the Overwhelmed: The Campus Mental Health Crisis and What to Do About It. So I would want to see if this book, for example, is available either as an ebook or as a book that I can get here at Valencia. So I'm going to search for it. Let's cross our fingers together and see if it comes up. Hmm. Well, we didn't get that exact book, but we did get some interesting possible articles that I can read. College of the Overwhelmed, The Campus Mental Health Crisis and What to Do About It. So as you can see, I'm finding more sources. These sources likely have referenced this particular book or might have brought this book up. Um, if I were to continue doing this, guys, I would continue to start to look through these particular articles and essentially do what we often call surfing the sources. So mental health means academic health, an interview with Harvard's Rich Kano, not him, but College of the Overwhelmed, the campus mental health crisis and what to do about it. That one intrigues me. I want to read more about that. And so I'm going to go here to this particular source. And this appears to be a book review. That's not as useful to me. I was really hoping for a full journal article. Let me just make sure. I was hoping for something else. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. Now, I need to note, guys, that this is fairly common in the research process, that a lot of your time is going to be spent trying to see what you can discover, trying to see what you can find. In this case, these are all just reviews of the book. They're not the actual book itself. Though I do wonder, and this is me jumping over now and checking Google Scholar, and just trying to see what happens when I search for this particular book in Google Scholar, College of the Overwhelmed. I wonder if I can get access to it here as a PDF. No, I don't think I got so lucky. I was really hoping I got the full copy of the book, but I think what I got was another review of the book. Yeah, these are just book reviews. I didn't get lucky. All right, disappointing. But I'll continue to look and see what I can find. This one might be helpful. The Imperative for Preparing Non-Counselors. This one might be a useful book. So now that we're looking around on Google Scholar, let me show you guys what I would do if I were here on Google Scholar. So if I click here on full text at Valencia College, what it's going to do is it's going to jump me to the database, and it's going to allow me to see where this article is and see if I can use this particular article. At this point, I'm going to continue to try to look. This one talks about the source itself and starts to give me more details about the source. It's a credible source of information. I trust it. And so I might actually include this in my research and include this in my list of research. Now, what you guys are seeing is what I'm doing is I'm basically surfing through the sources. And I'm already starting to get a pretty good collection of sources together that I might intend to use. I lost the articles that were in my original search. So I've actually been naughty. I haven't been doing what I'm supposed to do, which is I should be putting down what I've been discovering. So as I go through, I like to list what it is I've discovered, what it is I've found. And here I would list the names of the articles if I were actually doing this research, and list specifically what I discovered. Luckily, this is a video. I can just watch the video later if I really want to. All right, now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start looking in the other databases. A lot of you guys just go to one database, and I think that's a key mistake that many of you guys make. What you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to play around in different databases. I always tell you guys the different databases are like different malls. And so here I might start looking for some of the search terms that I put in before. So I've been looking for counseling, and I've been looking for college students. Let's see what comes up if I put advocacy in this time. I'm concerned that advocacy is going to bring up more LGBTQ issues, but I'm just going to bring it in, and I'm going to limit myself to articles. Yeah, that's a pretty good search right now, so let's see what I get from doing that on JSTOR. So a lot about counselors here. So maybe I'm going to want to change my search a little bit. Instead of saying counseling, I'm going to change it back to mental health. Okay. There's one other thing I want to try out before I start showing you guys some of the other ones. I'm going to put the word crisis in because I think it is a bit of a crisis, and I think someone might word it that way. So now I'm starting to get books that talk more about student mental health. Oh, this is interesting. Published in 1971. All right, so here's a good place where I might actually start specifying my time period because uh, uh, JSTOR tends to go very broad in terms of search. Now, that being said, I would actually be curious to find out about this because I could use a little bit of history on this subject. So I'm wondering, historically, how was mental health services treated at universities and colleges? So this article, which was written in 1971, that's 10 years before I was born, might actually be something that I would consider reading just out of curiosity. And the same thing where I would save this, cite the item, put it back here in my notes that I've got that I'm developing, just to show. Now, because I'm getting some articles that are older, I think I might go ahead and tell myself that I want to look for things between 2000 and 2019. So let's see what happens when I limit myself to that time period. All right. Now, as I continue to go through, I'm going to read. That's a book chapter that might still be useful. So I'm doing a lot of skimming and scanning right now, just trying to understand what these books are about, see if they're talking about a topic that's related to mine. I do a quick skim and scan, and I'm starting to just look up here and say, I don't think this has to do with what I'm looking for. One of the things I want you to know, guys, is that I'm very flexible in my search initially. I'm not just throwing things out automatically, but I am still looking through the sources first based on title, then based on synopsis or abstract of the work. I'm also looking for things like how complicated the work is. Am I, as an outsider, going to be able to understand it? All right, so that's how I navigate these databases, and you're also starting to see how I navigate Google, the Google searches. All right, so let's just do a classic Google search. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look for mental health, and I'm going to look for and students and crisis, and just see what comes up. All right, Inside Higher Ed is actually a really good simple source for me to use. And so I might go here and just start reading this article to find out more details here about something that might be an issue. It is impossible to identify and treat all college students who have experienced anxiety and depression, and we must determine which groups we can effectively assist, argues Billy Wright. I can't pronounce that last name. So what I'm going to do as I'm reading through this article is I'm going to skim and scan and really try to get a sense of what's being argued in this particular article. Now, to determine if this is a valid argument, I'm cheating a little bit the way that Peter had mentioned, because I already know Inside Higher Ed is a valid article. But what I do to try to figure out whether or not I trust an article like this is I start to look up details about what it is that Inside Higher Ed does. I'm going to look for about me's. I'm going to look for sections where they talk about their objectives, about their goals, where they talk about what it is that they do, when are they published. I like to go to About Us first and really check to see what the organization is about. So this says Inside Higher Ed is the leading digital media company serving higher education space. Since our founding in 2004, we have become the go-to online source for higher education news, thought leadership. So I'm looking for things like who are they? What is it that they publish? Let's go back to that article that I was reading just a moment ago. So this was written by Billy Wright, the last name I can't pronounce. So I didn't find any other articles written by him, but one of the things I might do is I might very quickly Google this author and try to figure out who they are. So I'm just going to do a quick search of this particular author. Let's cross our fingers that, this isn't also a porn star. Let's see what comes up. And it looks like they've written several. Billy Wright, last name I can't pronounce, is a professor of English at the University of Cincinnati and co-author. All right. Trustworthy enough. It's a professor. There's nothing here that says, Billy Wright, last name I can't pronounce, must be fired or anything like that. It sounds like he's a reputable professor of literature, assistant to the dean at the University of Cincinnati's University College. This is a trustworthy source. It's a fairly common practice for you guys to look up authors like this and see what these authors' history is. So it's also a good idea for you to have an article like this, as it provides us with a simpler to understand approach to the topic. JSTOR Academic Search Complete is going to give you a little bit of depth in the topic, but this is also going to give you a sense of what it is people are currently arguing on the topic. So we're going to look up things like, here's the Psychiatric Times, and we're going to look up Psychiatric Times, the crisis in college and university mental health, and see what it is that they are writing about. This seems like one that's worth reading. Now, I got to note too, I'm going to read all of these articles if I'm you. If I'm a researcher looking into this subject, I'm going to read all of these articles to find out as much as humanly possible. All right, the last thing I wanted to show you in this before I went ahead and closed things out is I'm going to search YouTube for any multimedia searches. Please ignore my common search terms, guys. I've been playing Persona 5 and I've been enjoying the soundtrack. All right, so let's go ahead and start searching and try to see what we can find. So we're going to look up, you had mentioned TED Talks, Joanny, so let's look up TED Talks and let's look up student mental health. And let's see if we find any that might actually be helpful to us. There's some interesting ones here. I would maybe flag this one as one to potentially read. I would flag this one as one to watch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to go ahead and add these to my queue so I have these saved and ready to go. And that way I can later watch these videos and I'd be able to start to make note of what it is that these videos are talking about. Again, the goal is really to give yourself sort of an inundation of information. All right, so let me go over some of the things that I did here as I was searching. I started off in the databases. So I'm going to try to write these down here so that you guys can see what my basic mindset was as I went through. I started in the databases. I considered initial search terms. I had to narrow or broaden my search terms as I went through. I had to review the material that came up for possible search terms. I used Boolean search methods. So that was adding things like and, or, not. And I wanted you to note I was careful not to write complete sentences. Then I moved on to Google and Google Scholar. First thing I did was I connected Google Scholar to my search when I was logged into Google. I was a little more generalized with my search terms here. Complete sentences were okay because Google is designed to be used by a more general population, so it's designed to have more of a broader search. So I went very broad, and then I investigated the history of the author and organization to determine if I trusted that particular source. All right, and then finally I went to YouTube, and what I did was I really looked broadly for terms. I considered trustworthy or generally trustworthy channels. In this case, I focused most of my attention on Google Scholar, but you can search in other places as well. I could have looked for PBS. I could have looked for documentaries. One thing I didn't do because I didn't really have time is I didn't yet investigate the creator of the content. I want to make sure I investigate the creator of the content just like I would for Google. When I'm doing that, I'm usually considering credentials. I'm typically considering fairness. I'm typically considering relevancy, and I'm typically considering time frame. So credentials is what degrees do they have that I can trust, or what training do they have that I can trust. Fairness is do they have any outside influence that's changing the way they think about their topic. Relevancy is whether or not they are actually clearly connected to my topic, and time frame is when was the information published. All right, guys, so this was basically what we call a think aloud exercise. The objective of this think aloud exercise is primarily just to show you guys what my mindset is as I'm going through this. I know this was a long video. It came out to about 25 minutes, but I wanted you guys to see what does it look like when someone like me starts to search for this. In my search, I found at least 2 credible peer-reviewed journal articles, and there were a bunch that I skipped over. Um, I found multiple articles from the Google search, and I found at least 4 videos that I need to watch later. Now, later, I'm going to parse through this information and decide how I intend to use it. One of the things I do want you to keep in mind is that you do need to be adaptable. As you are doing your research, remember, it's a lot easier for you to adapt your message and your thesis than it is for you to adapt what it is that the source said. All right, my intention is to upload this to YouTube and then send this out as a link to Professor Hernandez and ask him to give it to you guys for you to review later. All right, I hope you guys are having fun with the scavenger hunt. I'm going to go check on you guys now.